Imagine walking through a city at night, surrounded by thousands of silent radio waves. Signals everywhere, music, conversations, stories, all invisible, all real. Yet without a receiver tuned to the right channel, none of it exists for you. You could be standing right next to the signal you want and still experience silence. That's how the quantum field works. It's not about effort. It's about alignment. What if the reason your reality hasn't shifted isn't because you're doing something wrong, but because you're tuned into the wrong frequency? Your life, the people you meet, the opportunities that find you, the circumstances you're in, is the current station you're tuned to. And the most uncomfortable truth is this: the quantum field isn't withholding anything from you. Everything you want, everything you long for, already exists on another frequency. The question is not whether your desires are possible. It's whether your signal matches the version of you that already lives inside that reality. But here's where most people miss it. They try to manifest a new life using the same signal that created the old one. They visualize abundance while vibrating scarcity. They affirm love while broadcasting unworthiness. They journal clarity while emitting confusion. And when nothing changes, they assume manifestation isn't working. But the truth is, it's working perfectly. The field is giving them a mirror of their most consistent broadcast, not their intentions, not their mood today, their signal. Let's go deeper. Physics tells us that the quantum field is a sea of infinite potential. All realities, all outcomes, all possibilities exist as probability waves. These waves collapse into form based on the observer's influence, a principle proven in quantum experiments for nearly a century. But what determines how you influence the field? Not your conscious thoughts alone, not your vision boards. Your influence comes from your vibrational identity, the emotional and energetic state you live in most of the time. That's what collapses probability into experience. So let me ask you, what frequency are you living from? Is it survival, fear, lack, control? Is it performance, effort, proving, striving? Or is it presence, knowing, trust, coherence? Because only one of these states unlocks the quantum field. And it's not the one that pushes harder. It's the one that aligns deeper. We've been taught to do more, to push, to hustle. But the universe doesn't respond to what you're doing. It responds to what you're being. And being is vibrational. It's not about acting as if. It's about feeling as if. That's what speaks to the field. That's what unlocks the doors that effort never could. And here's the key twist: you can't fake it. The field doesn't respond to performance. It responds to coherence. Coherence between heart and mind, between thought and emotion, between who you say you are and how you actually feel. If your head says I believe, but your body feels I'm not enough, the field mirrors the stronger signal. And that's almost always the emotional one. Why? Because emotion carries frequency. It's your energetic fingerprint, and it never lies. That's why it's not enough to think positively. That's why scripting your dream life won't work if you still feel undeserving of it. That's why speaking affirmations while internally doubting yourself creates static. The signal isn't clear, and the field doesn't respond to static. In the next segment, we'll decode what this clear frequency actually feels like. We'll explore why it's not intensity, but subtlety that unlocks the field. Why it's not willpower, but surrendered coherence that creates collapse. And why the most powerful signal you can emit often sounds like silence to the world, but sings loudly to the universe. Ready to tune in? Let's continue. Most people believe the field responds to their intentions, but that's only half the truth. Intentions are the spark, but the fire is the frequency. If your internal energy is unstable, your desires bounce off reality like a poorly aligned signal. The quantum field doesn't collapse for what you want in theory. It collapses for what you are consistently being. And consistently is not about daily rituals. It's about emotional gravity. It's about whether the version of you that exists now is broadcasting alignment or contradiction. That's where the concept of the resonance threshold comes into play. Think of it as the critical point in frequency tuning where your energy becomes stable enough to pull the new reality into form. Below that threshold, the field hesitates. It reflects your old status quo. Above that threshold, reality starts bending. The shift doesn't happen because you worked harder. It happens because your signal got clear enough to be listened to. And clarity isn't found in force. It's found in embodiment. When what you feel, think, and do vibrates in harmony, coherence is born. And coherence acts like a beam of light cutting through noise. When you reach that resonance threshold, you don't have to push. You don't have to chase. You simply are. And the field bends to that state, not to the drama you once carried. Let's make this concrete. Imagine waking up in abundance not because your bank account changed overnight, because your internal landscape did. You choose to walk with generosity, not scarcity. You pause when doubt whispers. You breathe into trust. You respond from presence. You aren't forcing alignment. You're allowing it through your being. That is true resonance. Now imagine someone else who still says all the right words but lives from old patterns. They may achieve short bursts of alignment, a synchronicity here or there, but the moment resistance returns, the frequency collapses. Their field resets. They slip back into the loop, and they don't understand why manifestation feels inconsistent. That inconsistency is not external failure. It is evidence of frequency drift. And while intention fires the arrow, coherence is what holds your aim. This is why your success isn't tied to effort. It's tied to energetic precision. And energetic precision is not about changing your life outside. It's about transforming your inner world so that the outer simply cannot help but reflect it. Here's the truth. You don't collapse a new timeline by building bigger dreams. You collapse it by becoming the frequency of the version of you who already lives there. In the next minutes, we'll explore what that frequency actually feels like, the subtle state underneath manifestation, the whispered calm, the quiet knowing, the vibrations that aren't loud but unwavering. We'll map it scientifically, spiritually, and experientially. Ready to open the chapter on stillness as power? Let's do this. So what does the frequency that unlocks the quantum field actually feel like? It's not adrenaline. It's not excitement. It's not the emotional surge you get after a visualization or affirmation session. Those are beautiful moments, but they're not sustainable frequencies. The field isn't impressed by spikes of energy. It responds to sustained vibration, to the quiet, consistent hum of coherence. And that hum often feels like stillness. Let's be clear. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means no longer broadcasting internal contradiction. It means that your thoughts, emotions, and nervous system are no longer working against each other. Your mind isn't obsessing over outcomes while your heart aches with doubt. Your actions aren't trying to prove worthiness you don't feel. In this frequency, there is nothing to prove, nothing to chase, only something to embody. And that embodiment is magnetic. From a scientific perspective, this state is called psychophysiological coherence. When your brain and heart rhythms synchronize, your body enters a harmonious state where stress dissolves and clarity sharpens. According to the HeartMath Institute, this coherence amplifies your electromagnetic field, which influences not only your biology, but the space around you. Your body becomes a transmitter, a sender of signal, and the signal is clean. From a spiritual lens, this is the place where surrender meets intention. You're still holding the vision, but no longer needing it to prove something about yourself. You've stopped needing, not because you gave up, but because you remembered. You remembered that everything already exists, and your job is not to beg the field. It's to tune to the version of you that already lives the outcome. When that happens, your presence shifts. Your aura stabilizes. Your timeline responds. You stop reacting to circumstances. You stop scanning the external for evidence. You stop trying to impress the field. And ironically, that's when the evidence begins to show. Because you're no longer interfering with the broadcast. You're holding the note. And holding that note is what collapses the wave into form. Think about it like tuning a musical instrument. If you're slightly off, the melody feels dissonant. But when you're in tune, everything flows, not because you're playing louder, but because you're playing in harmony. That harmony is what the quantum field locks onto. That harmony becomes a bridge between probabilities and physical experience. And here's something few people talk about. When you're in this frequency, you stop craving the manifestation itself. Not because you've given up, but because you're already saturated in the emotional state that the manifestation was supposed to bring you. You've collapsed the distance. You've dissolved the gap. And when the gap disappears, time does too. This is the paradox of quantum alignment. The less you need, the more you receive. The less you chase, the more comes. The less you prove, the more the field responds. Let's take this idea deeper and ask a pivotal question. If you already are the version of you that lives in your next reality, how does that version walk, breathe, speak, and respond? Because true frequency isn't something you think about, it's something you live from. Let's unlock that embodiment now. The territory of embodied frequency is the real moment where intention stops being a concept and starts becoming your operating system. Ask yourself this. If you were already living in the timeline you're trying to reach, how would you wake up tomorrow? How would you move? What would your inner monologue sound like? What would your nervous system feel like in your body? That's the gap most people never bridge. They think about their future self but continue to become their past self every morning. They rehearse lack, replay failure, relive resistance, all while trying to force a manifestation from a frequency that says, I don't have it yet. But the quantum field doesn't speak English. It doesn't decode words, it decodes states. And your state is speaking every moment you exist. So here's the truth. You don't get what you want. You get what you signal. Wanting is passive. Broadcasting is active. You're either transmitting coherence or transmitting contradiction. The difference is subtle, but transformative. The version of you that has the thing you desire isn't just doing different things. They're being differently. They embody trust instead of grasping. They lean into flow instead of forcing. Their nervous system is relaxed, not because they won, but because they're not chasing anymore. Let me share something with you. The most powerful shift I ever made was when I stopped visualizing my future from the outside and started living it from the inside. I stopped asking for things to come. I started showing up as the version of me who already had them. And suddenly, reality didn't resist me anymore. Because I wasn't pushing, I was resonating. That's what it means to tune in. So how do you begin living this today? Start simple. Speak only what aligns. Breathe into your future, not your fears. Let your posture carry certainty. Let your decisions reflect abundance. Let your inner dialogue move from, I hope it works, to, this is who I am now. And when doubt returns, because it will, don't argue with it. Don't fear it. Just breathe. Return to the frequency. Here's something powerful. Coherence isn't about perfection. It's about returning. Returning again and again to the signal. Because the universe doesn't need perfection. It needs consistency. Think of it like this. Every time you return to the frequency of your aligned self, you're reinforcing the signal, strengthening the field's response. And eventually, reality has no choice but to follow. Let this be your micro-practice. When you wake up, ask, what frequency am I tuning into today? Before you speak, ask, does this reflect my desired state? Before you act, ask, is this decision coming from alignment or survival? And now, as we pause in this point of awareness, I invite you to anchor this energy. Let's collectively align. Comment below. I am tuned in. Write it not as a request, but as a declaration, as an activation. When you comment, you're reinforcing your own broadcast. You're telling the field, I'm not watching this for information. I'm aligning for transformation. Stay with me, because we'll go even further into how to stabilize this frequency when life throws noise at your signal. Because it will. The real test of frequency isn't how high you vibrate during a meditation session, or how empowered you feel while listening to a video like this. The true test is how well you hold your signal when reality begins to contradict your new timeline. Because at some point, and this is inevitable, the old frequency will knock at your door, not as punishment, but as confirmation that you've moved. Imagine tuning to a new radio station. As you drive away from the old one, static interrupts the clarity of the signal. It doesn't mean the new frequency isn't real. It just means you haven't fully stabilized your receiver. That static, those fears, triggers, doubts, and disappointments, are echoes of the version of you that's fading. And what you do in that static determines how quickly you anchor your new timeline. Most people panic when the old shows up again. They think it means they're backsliding. They fall into disappointment, which is simply a collapse in frequency. But here's the shift. When your new signal is strong enough, those old echoes don't destabilize you. They confirm you. You see them for what they are: residue, feedback, the inertia of the previous self. Nothing more. This is why spiritual alignment isn't about avoiding contrast. It's about remaining unchanged by it. Not because you're suppressing emotion, but because your frequency has matured. You've become the tuning fork instead of the chaser. You emit the tone and reality bends. That's quantum leadership. So how do you hold the frequency in real life? You ground it into rituals. You reinforce it through identity. You create environments, both internal and external, that stabilize your signal. Here's what that looks like. Energetic check-ins. Several times a day, close your eyes for 30 seconds and ask, what am I broadcasting right now? Without judgment, just awareness. This creates feedback, and feedback creates mastery. Vibrational anchors. Choose 1 or 2 phrases that immediately return you to your aligned self. Examples: I already am. The field responds to me. I am the signal. Whisper them. Live them. Pattern interrupts. When the old emotional wave rises, the fear, the grasping, the panic, don't suppress it. Breathe into it. Witness it. Then shift. Not forcefully, just gently. One coherent breath can reset your frequency. Environment optimization. Align your space with your state. Music, light, order, sense, these are all frequency modifiers. Create a physical resonance chamber for your inner vibration. Coherent choices. Every action you take is a declaration of identity. Let your behavior reflect your new frequency, not your old fear. Move as the person who already lives the shift. And perhaps most importantly, stop needing reality to prove your progress. The moment you wait for signs, you fall out of signal. The moment you monitor for evidence, you create delay. The quantum field doesn't need you to perform. It needs you to remember. Remember who you are and why you're no longer available for static. Let's pause here, right here, and remind ourselves that you don't stabilize your frequency by controlling the world. You stabilize it by mastering your signal, by choosing your tone and refusing to let the external world dictate your inner note. This is your vibrational sovereignty, and it's available every moment. In our final chapter, we'll uncover what happens when your signal becomes unshakable. We'll explore the moment the field responds, not with magic, but with resonant reflection. You'll see why letting go becomes easy and why what you were chasing finally chases you. When your frequency becomes consistent, something mysterious and deeply familiar begins to happen. You stop reaching. You stop rehearsing. You stop needing to manipulate or monitor anything. Reality stops being something you try to control. It becomes something you dance with. The effort dissolves, the striving fades, and all that remains is presence. Not the presence of still waiting, but the presence of already having. This is the moment your manifestation arrives, but the irony is, you're no longer watching the door. You're not checking the clock. You're not asking when, because you've become the version of you who no longer waits. You've become the version who lives in the now as if it already is. That's the moment when the field, as if responding to a signal it can no longer ignore, begins to mirror back the new timeline with uncanny precision. But here's the secret most won't tell you. The actual event of the manifestation is anticlimactic. Not because it's small, but because you already felt it long before it arrived. It doesn't shock you. It matches you. It's not a surprise. It's a reflection. You don't scream. You nod. Because your frequency got there first. And this, more than anything, confirms you've crossed into vibrational mastery. The quantum field responds to frequency, not fantasy. It responds to coherence, not craving. When you emit the signal with clarity and consistency, not for a day, not for a week, but as a new way of being, the field organizes matter around you. People change, events align, opportunities emerge, and the most beautiful part? You didn't do it. You became it. Now you understand why the most aligned people seem effortless. It's not luck. It's not privilege. It's not bypass. It's resonance. They've stopped leaking energy. They've stopped broadcasting contradiction. Their signal is strong, not because they're louder, but because they're cleaner. Clear signal, clean frequency, powerful reflection. So what do you do from here? You don't go chasing a bigger vision. You don't go trying to get more. You go inward. You refine your state. You recommit to the embodiment. You stop checking the mirror and start trusting the light you're broadcasting. And most of all, you protect your coherence. Because once you've tasted alignment, once you've felt the field respond, you'll never again settle for distortion. This is your power, your portal, your point of creation. Now take a breath, a deep, slow, grounded breath, and hold this state. Let it saturate your nervous system. Let it anchor in your heart. And before you leave this video, know this: the shift isn't coming. You are the shift. The field isn't listening for your words. It's vibrating to your tone. And the manifestation isn't a reward. It's a match. If this video brought you into a new awareness, even for a moment, then this isn't just content. It's connection. And if you want to stay in this frequency, you're already part of the community we're building here. Subscribe now to deepen your signal. This is more than videos. This is your reminder of who you really are. The field is listening. The signal is live. Stay aligned. Stay coherent.